A Korean mafia boss walks into a hotel lobby in Houston and sees the ghost of the woman he loved 10 years ago. The woman his own family told him had betrayed him for money. But she's alive. She's real. And when she runs, he chases her into a parking garage where the truth detonates like a grenade. She never left him. She was taken. And the little girl holding her hand? That's his daughter, a daughter he never knew existed, a daughter who's dying. If you want to see how far love can survive when it's been buried under a decade of lies, blood, and silence, stay until the end. And when you're done, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain in Houston fell in thick sheets, turning the streets into rivers of neon and exhaust. Jae-hyun Kang stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse suite on the 42nd floor of the Marquis Tower, staring down at a city that didn't know his name but would bleed if he asked it to. He was 36 years old. He controlled heroin routes from Busan to Seattle, laundered money through 12 shell corporations across 3 continents, and had personally watched 6 men die by his own hand. He wore a charcoal suit tailored in Milan, a Patek Philippe on his left wrist, and a scar along his ribs from a knife fight in Macau that should have killed him, but didn't. None of it mattered, because 10 years ago, he had loved a woman named Sienna Carter, and she had destroyed him. That was the story he'd been told. That was the story he'd believed. She had taken $200,000 from a safe in his Seoul apartment, disappeared in the middle of the night, and left behind nothing but a note that said she couldn't do this anymore. His family, his blood, had shown him the bank records, the security footage, the testimony of his own cousin who swore he'd seen her at the airport with a duffel bag full of cash. So Jae-hyun had done what any man in his position would do. He buried the grief, burned the memory, and built an empire on the ashes of the only softness he'd ever known. But 3 weeks ago, that story cracked open like a rotten egg. He'd been in his office in Seoul, going through old financial records his late father had kept locked in a vault, when he found a folder marked Carter, Severance Protocol. Inside were documents he'd never seen. Forged bank transfers, falsified witness statements, emails between his uncle and a fixer in Los Angeles discussing how to remove the American girl cleanly and ensure Jae-hyun refocuses on family business. There was even a photograph of Sienna, taken from behind, at Los Angeles International Airport, except the timestamp didn't match the night she supposedly fled. It was 4 days earlier, before she'd even known anything was wrong. They had set her up. His own family had erased her, and he had let them. Jae-hyun had flown to Houston the next day, not for business, not for territory, for her. He didn't know if she was still alive, didn't know if she'd moved on, gotten married, forgotten him entirely, but he had to know. He had to see her face one more time and tell her the truth, even if she spit in his face for it. The meet was scheduled for tomorrow night, an arms deal with a Texas crew that wanted to expand into meth distribution. But Jae-hyun didn't care about the deal. He cared about the fact that the last known address he had for Sienna Carter was an apartment complex 15 minutes from the hotel. He turned away from the window and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. His phone buzzed. A text from his right-hand man, Min Jun. Landing in 2 hours. You need anything? Jae-hyun didn't reply. He drank the whiskey in one swallow, felt the burn slide down his throat, and tried not to think about the way Sienna used to laugh when he told her his English was bad. She'd been a graduate student at Yonsei University, studying international relations, and he'd been a 26-year-old enforcer trying to prove himself to a father who saw him as weak. They'd met at a bar in Itaewon. She'd smiled at him like he wasn't covered in blood money, like he was just a man. He'd loved her for that. And then he'd lost her, or so he thought. The next morning, Jae-hyun woke at 5:30, showered, dressed in a black Henley and dark jeans, and took the elevator down to the hotel gym. He ran 6 miles on the treadmill, his mind blank, his body a machine. By the time he finished, the sun was starting to break through the clouds, and the city below was waking up. He went back to his suite, changed into a gray button-down and slacks, and headed down to the lobby for coffee. That's when he saw her. She was standing near the concierge desk, talking to a woman in a hotel uniform. She wore a navy blazer, fitted jeans, and white sneakers. Her hair was longer now, pulled back in a low ponytail, and there were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But it was her, Sienna Carter, alive, real, 10 feet away from him. Jae-hyun's heart stopped. She turned, glanced toward the elevator bank, and her eyes landed on him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Her face went pale. Her lips parted. Her hand came up to her mouth like she'd been struck. And then she ran. Jae-hyun didn't think. He bolted after her, his shoes slapping against the marble floor, weaving past a family with rolling suitcases and a businessman shouting into his phone. Sienna shoved through the glass doors that led to the parking garage, and he followed, the humid air hitting him like a wet towel. She was fast, faster than he remembered, but he was faster. He caught up to her between a row of cars, grabbed her arm, spun her around. Sienna, let go of me! She ripped her arm free, stumbling backward, her chest heaving. Her eyes were wild, terrified. You need to leave, right now. I'm not here to hurt you. I don't care why you're here. You need to go. They lied to me. His voice came out rough, desperate. My family lied. You didn't take that money. You didn't leave me. She stared at him, her breath coming in short bursts. You think I don't know that? You think I didn't figure that out when your cousin showed up at my apartment in LA with 2 men and told me if I ever contacted you again, they'd kill me? Jae-hyun felt the ground tilt beneath him. What? They said you wanted me gone, that you'd paid them to make sure I understood. Her voice cracked. So I left, Jae. I got on a bus, changed my name, worked 3 jobs, and stayed as far away from you as I could, because I thought you hated me. I didn't know. The words felt pathetic, useless. I swear to God I didn't know. Well, now you do. She turned to walk away. Sienna, wait. I have to go. I have to pick up my daughter from school. The word hit him like a bullet. Daughter. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path. You have a kid? She looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. Something raw and unguarded and afraid. Yes. How old? 9. The air went out of his lungs. 9 years old, 10 years since she'd disappeared. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. Don't do this. Is she mine? Jae! Is she mine? Sienna closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, the tears spilled over. Yes. The world stopped. Jae-hyun stood there in the parking garage, the smell of oil and concrete and rain all around him, and tried to process the fact that somewhere in this city was a little girl who carried his blood. A daughter. His daughter. A child he'd never met, never held, never even known existed. Where is she? His voice was barely above a whisper. That's none of your business. Like hell it's not. You don't get to just show up after 10 years and act like you have rights. Sienna's voice was shaking now, anger and grief tangled together. You don't know her. You don't know anything about her. Then tell me. No. Sienna, she's sick, Jae. The words came out broken, desperate. She has a heart condition. She needs surgery. And I've been working myself into the ground trying to save enough money to pay for it. So forgive me if I don't have the energy to stand here and relive the worst year of my life with you. Jae-hyun felt something crack open inside him. How much do you need? I don't want your money. How much? It doesn't matter. I'm handling it. Sienna. He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. How much? She looked at him, her jaw tight, her eyes red. 250,000. For the surgery, the recovery, the medication, but I'm not... I'll pay it. No. I'll pay all of it. Today. Right now. I said no. She's my daughter. His voice broke on the last word. You can hate me. You can tell me to go to hell, but don't punish her because of what happened between us. Sienna stared at him, her hands trembling. You think this is about punishing her? You think I wouldn't sell my soul to save her? I've been doing this alone for 9 years, Jae. 9 years. And now you want to swoop in and play hero because you found out the truth? I want to help. I don't need your help. Yes, you do. She turned away, her shoulders shaking, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. If you do this, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean you get to be part of her life. It doesn't mean I forgive you. I know. I'm only saying yes because she deserves a chance, not because of you. I understand. Sienna wiped her eyes, took a breath, and looked at him one more time. Her name is Amara. Jae-hyun nodded, the name settling into his chest like a stone. I'll text you the hospital information, Sienna said. But after this, you leave us alone. Do you hear me? I hear you. She walked past him, her footsteps echoing in the garage, and Jae-hyun stood there alone, staring at the oil-stained concrete beneath his feet. He had killed men. He had burned cities. He had built an empire on fear and blood and silence. But none of it had prepared him for this. He pulled out his phone and called Min Jun. I need $250,000 wired to a Houston hospital by end of business today, he said, and I need you to clear my schedule for the next month. Boss, we have the Texas meet tomorrow. Cancel it. What's going on? Jae-hyun looked up at the sky, the clouds breaking apart to reveal patches of blue. I just found out I have a daughter. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, what do you need me to do? Just get me the money. I'll handle the rest. He hung up, slid the phone into his pocket, and started walking back toward the hotel. His hands were shaking. His mind was racing. But for the first time in 10 years, Jae-hyun Kang felt something other than rage. He felt hope, and he felt terror. Because he knew that once he met Amara, once he looked into her eyes and saw whatever piece of himself lived inside her, there would be no walking away. No going back to Seoul. No pretending this didn't matter. He was about to become a father, and he had no idea how to do that without destroying everything. 2 days later, Sienna texted him an address. A small cafe on the east side of the city, near a park with rusted playground equipment and a chain-link fence. Jae-hyun arrived early, ordered a black coffee he didn't drink, and sat in a booth by the window, watching the door like a man waiting for execution. At 3:15, Sienna walked in, and behind her, holding her hand, was a little girl with dark hair pulled into 2 puffs, wearing a yellow backpack covered in cartoon cats. Jae-hyun's breath caught. She had his eyes. Amara looked around the cafe with the wide-eyed curiosity of a child who'd been told something important was about to happen, but didn't quite understand what. Sienna led her to the booth, slid in across from Jae-hyun, and pulled Amara onto the seat beside her. Amara, Sienna said quietly, this is an old friend of mine. His name is Jae-hyun. Amara looked at him, tilted her head, and smiled. Hi. Jae-hyun tried to speak, but his throat was too tight. He managed a nod. Are you from Korea? Amara asked. My mom said you're Korean. I learned how to say hello in Korean. Want to hear? Sure, he said, his voice rough. 안녕하세요. She beamed at him, proud of herself. Jae-hyun felt something break inside him. That's very good. My mom taught me. She said she lived in Korea a long time ago. Did you know her there? Yes. Were you friends? Sienna's hand tightened on the table. Amara, why don't you go pick out a cookie from the counter? I'll be right here. Can I get 2? 1. Okay. Amara slid out of the booth and skipped toward the pastry display, her yellow backpack bouncing. Sienna waited until she was out of earshot, then looked at Jae-hyun with an expression that could have cut glass. You have 10 minutes. Don't make me regret this. I won't. And don't tell her who you are. Not yet. She doesn't need that kind of confusion right now. Okay. Amara came back with a chocolate chip cookie the size of her hand, climbed back into the booth, and took a bite, crumbs scattering across the table. She looked at Jae-hyun again, studying him with the unfiltered curiosity only kids have. You look sad, she said. Jae-hyun blinked. I do? Yeah, like my mom when she thinks I'm not looking. Sienna's face went pale. Amara kept going, oblivious. Are you sad because you miss Korea? Something like that, Jae-hyun said. I miss things too. I miss my old school. We moved here a year ago. My mom said it was for a better job, but I think it's because the doctors here are better. Amara, Sienna said gently, you don't have to. It's okay, Mom. Looks nice. Amara turned back to Jae-hyun. I have a bad heart. That's why I have to go to the doctor a lot. But my mom says I'm going to get surgery soon and then I'll be all better. Jae-hyun looked at Sienna and she looked away, her jaw tight. You're very brave, he said to Amara. She shrugged. My mom says brave people are just scared people who don't give up. Your mom is right. Amara finished her cookie, wiped her hands on her jeans, and looked at him with sudden seriousness. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have kids? The question hit him like a fist to the chest. He opened his mouth, closed it, and finally said, No. Oh, she frowned. That's sad. You seem like you'd be a good dad. Sienna stood abruptly. We should go. You have homework. But Mom. Now, Amara. Amara slid out of this booth, looking confused but obedient. She waved at Jae-hyun. Bye. It was nice to meet you. You too, he managed. Sienna didn't look at him as she took Amara's hand and headed for the door. But just before they stepped outside, Amara turned back, smiled, and said, I hope you're not sad anymore. And then they were gone. Jaehyun sat there in the booth, staring at the crumbs on the table, and felt the walls he'd spent 10 years building start to collapse. He pulled out his phone and called Min-jun again. I'm staying, he said, indefinitely. What about Seoul? You handle it. Boss, I'm not asking. He hung up, left cash on the table, and walked out into the Houston heat. He didn't know what he was doing, didn't know if Sienna would ever let him close enough to matter, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't leaving, not now, not ever, because that little girl with his eyes and her mother's smile had looked at him and called him sad. And for the first time in his life, Jae-hyun Kang wanted to be something other than the man his family had made him. He wanted to be someone Amara could be proud of, even if it killed him. Jae-hyun spent the next 3 days learning how to be invisible. He followed Sienna and Amara from a distance, learning their routines, their patterns, the shape of their lives. He watched Sienna drop Amara off at Franklin Elementary at 7:45 every morning, watched her drive to a medical billing office where she worked until 5, watched her pick Amara up from an after-school program and take her to physical therapy twice a week. He watched them eat dinner at a taqueria on Wednesdays, watched them go to the library on Saturdays, watched Sienna sit in her car outside the hospital sometimes, just sitting there with her hands on the steering wheel like she was gathering the strength to go inside. He didn't approach them, didn't call, didn't text. He just watched, and he hated himself for it, but he couldn't stop. Because every time he saw Amara's face, something inside him shifted. She had his mother's nose, his father's stubborn chin. She walked with a slight limp on her left side, probably from the heart condition, and she talked to everyone, other kids, teachers, the crossing guard, the woman who ran the taco stand. She was fearless in a way that terrified him. On the 4th day, Sienna called. I know you've been following us, she said. No greeting, no warmth. Stop. Jaehyun was sitting in his rental car across the street from the elementary school, watching Amara play on the monkey bars during recess. He'd been so careful. How did you know? Because I've spent 10 years looking over my shoulder, Jay. You think I don't notice a black SUV parked on my street 3 nights in a row? He closed his eyes. I'm not trying to scare you. Then what are you trying to do? I don't know. It was the truth. I need to see her. You saw her at the cafe. That was the deal. That wasn't enough. Too bad. Her voice was sharp, clipped. You don't get to decide what's enough. This is my life, our life, and you're not part of it. She's my daughter. She's my daughter. I'm the one who's been here. I'm the one who held her when she cried after her first EKG. I'm the one who maxed out my credit cards to pay for her medication. You don't get to show up and act like biology means anything. Jae-hyun felt the anger rise in his chest, hot and jagged. I didn't know she existed. If I had known, but you didn't, and that's not my fault. It's not mine either. Sienna laughed, bitter and raw. You want to play victim now? You, the man who runs half the criminal networks in Asia? You, who's probably killed more people than I've met in my entire life? That's not who I am with her. You don't get to be anyone with her. That's the point. Jaehyun's hand tightened on the phone. What do you want from me, Sienna? You want me to disappear? You want me to pretend I never saw her? Because I can't do that. I've tried, and I can't. There was silence on the other end. Then, quietly, the surgery is scheduled for next Friday. His heart stopped. Next Friday? They had a cancellation. We got moved up. That's 6 days. I know. Is she ready? No one's ever ready for this. Sienna's voice cracked, just for a second, and then she pulled it back together. The money came through. Thank you for that. I want to be there. Jay, I'm not asking your permission. I'm telling you, I'm going to be there. She doesn't even know who you are. Then tell her. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. His voice was rising now, the control slipping. You tell her I'm her father. You tell her I didn't know about her. You tell her the truth. And what happens after the surgery? What happens when you get bored of playing dad and go back to Seoul? What happens when she gets attached and you disappear? I'm not going to disappear. You don't know that. Yes, I do. No, Jay, you don't. Because you've spent your entire life running toward violence. It's all you know. And sooner or later, that life is going to come looking for you. And when it does, I don't want my daughter anywhere near it. Jae-hyun stared out the windshield at the playground, at Amara laughing as she hung upside down from the bars, her yellow backpack in the dirt below her. I'll keep her safe. You can't promise that. I can try. Sienna was quiet for a long time, then, if you show up at that hospital, you're going to break her heart eventually. You know that, right? Maybe, but if I don't show up, I'll break my own, and I've done that enough for one lifetime. She hung up without saying goodbye. Jae-hyun sat there in the car, the phone still pressed to his ear, and felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made come crashing down on him. He'd killed men who begged for mercy. He'd burned buildings with people inside. He'd looked his own father in the eye and told him he'd rather die than walk away from the family business. And all of it had been easy. All of it had made sense. But this? Loving a daughter he barely knew, trying to be something other than a weapon? This was impossible, and he was going to do it anyway. That night, Min-jun called. "We have a problem," he said. Jae-hyun was in his hotel room, staring at a bottle of whiskey he hadn't opened yet. "What kind of problem?" "Your uncle knows you're in Houston." The air went cold. "How?" "Someone in our crew talked. I don't know who yet, but the word is out. And your uncle is asking questions." Jae-hyun's uncle, Kang Dae-jung, was the eldest of his father's brothers and the current head of the family's operations in Seoul. He was a man who believed in tradition, in bloodlines, in loyalty above all else. He was also the man who had orchestrated Sienna's disappearance 10 years ago. "What kind of questions?" Jae-hyun asked. "About why you're in Houston, about why you canceled the Texas meet, about whether you've gone soft." "Let him ask." "Jae, you don't understand. He's mobilizing. He's calling in favors. He thinks you're compromised." "I am compromised. That's not funny." "I'm not joking," Min-jun sighed. "If you're planning to stay in Houston, you need to handle this. You need to go back to Seoul, sit down with your uncle, and remind him who the fuck you are. Because if you don't, he's going to come for you. And when he does, it's not going to be clean." Jae-hyun stood, walked to the window, looked down at the city lights below. "I'm not going back." "Then you're starting a war." "So be it." "Jae, I have a daughter, Min, a 9-year-old girl who's about to have open-heart surgery, and I'm not leaving her. I don't care what my uncle does. I don't care what the family thinks. I'm staying." There was a long pause. Then, "You're really doing this?" "Yes." "Okay." Min-jun's voice shifted, became steady, resolute. "Then I'm with you. Whatever you need. I need you to keep Seoul off my back for the next 2 weeks. After that, I'll figure out the rest." "Done. But Jae, you need to tell the girl, before your uncle finds out and uses her against you." Jae-hyun closed his eyes. "I know." He hung up and stood there in the dark, the city humming below him, and thought about all the ways this could go wrong. His uncle could send men, could threaten Sienna, could hurt Amara just to prove a point. The family didn't forgive disloyalty. They didn't forgive weakness. And walking away from the empire his father had built? That was both. But Jae-hyun had spent his entire life being the man his family needed him to be. Maybe it was time to be the man his daughter needed instead. The next morning, he went to Sienna's apartment. She lived in a small 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. The paint was peeling, the stairs creaked, there was a broken bike lock chained to the railing outside her door. Jae-hyun knocked twice, and when she opened the door, she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I need to talk to you." "We talked yesterday." "This is different." She stared at him, her hand still on the doorknob, and for a moment he thought she was going to slam it in his face. But then she stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." He walked in. The apartment was small but clean, the kind of space where every piece of furniture had been chosen for function, not style. There was a couch with a faded floral pattern, a coffee table covered in medical bills, a shelf full of picture books and stuffed animals. On the wall was a drawing Amara had made, a crayon sketch of 3 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Jae-hyun stared at it. "She drew that last year," Sienna said quietly, "after I told her about Korea. She asked me if her dad was still there. I said I didn't know." "What did she say?" "She said she hoped he was happy." Jae-hyun felt his throat tighten. He turned to face her. "My family knows I'm here." Sienna's face went pale. "What?" "My uncle. The one who had you removed. He knows I'm in Houston, and he knows why, and he's not going to let this go." "Jesus Christ." She sat down on the couch, put her head in her hands. "I knew this would happen. I knew you'd bring your shit into our lives." I'm not bringing it. It's already here. It's been here since the day they took you from me. So what do? We tell Amara the truth. Today. Before someone else does. Sienna looked up at him, her eyes red. She's 9 years old, Jay. You can't just drop that on her right before surgery. If I don't, and something happens, if my uncle sends someone, if they try to use her to get to me, she'll be in danger and she won't even know why. She's already in danger, because of you. I know. He crouched down in front of her, met her eyes. But I'm not running. I'm not leaving, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep her safe. But she deserves to know who I am. She deserves to make her own choice about whether she wants me in her life. Sienna wiped her eyes, her hands shaking. And if she says no, then I'll leave. I'll disappear. I'll make sure my family never touches her. You can't promise that. I can try. She stared at him for a long time, and he could see the war happening behind her eyes, the anger, the fear, the exhaustion of carrying this alone for so long. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but I'm the one who tells her, not you. Deal. That afternoon, Sienna picked Amara up from school and brought her home early. Jaehyun waited outside in his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. 40 minutes later, Sienna texted him, "Come up." He took the stairs 2 at a time, his heart pounding, and when Sienna opened the door, she looked like she'd been crying. She didn't say anything, just stepped aside and pointed toward the couch. Amara was sitting there, her yellow backpack still on, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up at him with those dark, serious eyes, and Jaehyun felt the world tilt. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he managed. Sienna sat down beside her, put an arm around her shoulders. "Amara, do you remember when I told you that your dad and I weren't together anymore?" Amara nodded. "Well, I didn't tell you everything, because I didn't know everything." Sienna's voice was steady, but Jaehyun could hear the effort it took. "Your dad didn't leave us. He didn't know about you. Some very bad people lied to both of us and kept us apart. And the man you met at the cafe? That's him. That's your father." Amara looked at Jaehyun, then at Sienna, then back at Jaehyun. "Really?" "Yes," Sienna said. "But you said he was in Korea." "I thought he was. But he came here to find us." Amara's eyes were huge, her face unreadable. "Are you going to stay?" Jaehyun crouched down so he was eye level with her. "If you want me to, yes." "What if I don't?" The question cut deeper than any knife. "Then I'll leave, and I'll make sure you're safe. But I'll leave." Amara thought about this, her small face serious. "Do you love my mom?" Jaehyun glanced at Sienna, who looked away. "I did. A long time ago." "Do you love me?" His breath caught. "I don't know you yet, but I want to, more than anything." Amara chewed on her bottom lip, thinking. Then, "Can I call you Dad?" Jaehyun's vision blurred. "You can call me whatever you want." She nodded, like this made perfect sense. Then she stood up, walked over to him, and wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Okay, Dad," she said. "You can stay." Jaehyun closed his eyes and held her, this tiny person who'd just rewritten his entire life with 6 words. And he thought about all the things he'd done, all the blood on his hands, all the darkness he'd lived in. And he wondered if any of it mattered anymore, because nothing had ever felt as important as this. When Amara pulled back, she was smiling. "Does this mean you're going to be at my surgery?" "Yes." "Good, because I'm kind of scared." "Me too." She laughed. "You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say it's going to be okay." "It is going to be okay, but I'm still scared." "My mom says it's okay to be scared as long as you don't let it stop you. Your mom is very smart." Amara grinned, then looked at Sienna. "Can I show him my room?" Sienna nodded, her eyes wet. "Go ahead." Amara grabbed Chaehyun's hand and dragged him down the narrow hallway to a small bedroom with lavender walls and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. There were books stacked on the floor, a collection of stuffed animals on the bed, and a bulletin board covered in drawings and photographs. She pointed to a picture of herself and Sienna at the beach. "That's from last summer. We went to Galveston. I found a crab." "Did you keep it?" "No, Mom said we had to let it go. But I named it Gerald." Jaehyun smiled despite himself. "Gerald the crab." "Yeah, he was a good crab." She flopped onto her bed, suddenly serious again. "Dad?" The words still didn't feel real. "Yeah?" Are the bad people who lied to you going to come here? He could have lied. Could have told her everything was fine, that she was safe, that nothing bad would ever happen. But Amara was too smart for that, and she deserved the truth. I don't know, he said, but if they do, I'll make sure they don't hurt you, I promise. She nodded, like this was a perfectly reasonable answer. Okay. Can you read me a story before bed tonight? If your mom says it's okay. She will. She always says yes when I ask twice. Jae-hyun laughed, and it felt strange, like a muscle he hadn't used in years. I'll remember that. Later, after Amara had gone to bed, Jae-hyun and Sienna sat at the small kitchen table, a pot of coffee between them that neither of them touched. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. She took that better than I thought she would, Sienna said. She's strong. She gets that from me. Jae-hyun didn't argue. What happens now? Now? We get through the surgery, and then we figure out the rest. And us? Sienna looked at him, her expression hard. There is no us, Jay. There's you, and there's me, and there's Amara. That's it. Don't confuse helping your daughter with getting me back. That's not on the table. I wasn't. Yes, you were. I can see it in your face. You think this is some kind of second chance, like we're going to pick up where we left off and pretend the last 10 years didn't happen. I don't think that. Good. Because I've moved on. I've built a life. And just because you're Amara's father doesn't mean you get to be part of mine. Jae-hyun nodded, even though the words landed like punches. Fair enough. Sienna stood, started clearing the table, even though there was nothing on it. You should go. It's late. He stood, headed for the door, then stopped. Sienna? What? I'm sorry for everything, for not knowing, for not being there, for all of it. She didn't turn around. I know. He left, and the door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded too much like an ending. The next 5 days passed in a strange, suspended kind of time. Chae-hyun came to the apartment every afternoon after Amara got home from school. He helped her with her homework, played board games with her, listened to her talk about her friends and her teachers, and the boy in her class who ate glue. He read her stories at night, chapter books about magic and adventure and kids who saved the world. And every night when he left, Amara would hug him and say, "See you tomorrow, Dad." And every night, Sienna would watch from the kitchen, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. On the fourth night, after Amara was asleep, Sienna walked him to the door. She really likes you. I really like her too. Don't screw this up. I won't. Sienna looked at him, and for the first time since he'd shown up in Houston, her expression softened. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. The same man who used to come home covered in blood and wouldn't tell me where he'd been. The man who looked at me like I was the only good thing in his life, but couldn't figure out how to let me in. I'm trying to be different. I can see that. She paused. It's terrifying. Why? Because if you're different, then maybe I was wrong about you. And if I was wrong about you, then I wasted 10 years hating you for something that wasn't entirely your fault. And I don't know what to do with that. Jae-hyun wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, to tell her it didn't matter, but he knew better. You don't have to do anything. Just let me be here. That's enough. She nodded, opened the door. Surgery's at 6 a.m. Friday. Don't be late. I won't. But late Thursday night, everything went to hell. Jae-hyun was in his hotel room when his phone rang. It was Min-jun. They're coming, he said, no preamble. Jae-hyun sat up. Who? Your uncle sent 3 men. They land in Houston tomorrow morning. I tried to stall them, but what do they want? You. They're under orders to bring you back to Seoul, by force if necessary. And if I refuse? Min-jun was quiet. Then, they have pictures of the girl, Jay. They know where she lives. They know about the surgery. The world went red. If they touch her, they won't. Not yet. Your uncle wants leverage, not a war, but you need to move fast. Get them out of that apartment. Get them somewhere safe. Jae-hyun was already grabbing his jacket, his keys, his gun. I'm on my way. Keys, his gun. I'm on. He hung up, ran to the car, and drove to Sienna's apartment faster than he'd ever driven in his life. He took the stairs 4 at a time, pounded on the door, and when Sienna opened it, still in her pajamas, her face went white. What's wrong? We need to leave. Right now. What are you talking about? My family sent men. They're coming for me, and they know about Amara. Sienna's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Pack a bag, just the essentials. We have maybe 2 hours before they get here. Jay, the surgery, we'll still make it, but we can't stay here. She didn't argue. She ran to Amara's room, woke her up, and within 10 minutes they were in the car with 2 duffel bags and a very confused 9-year-old in the back seat. Where are we going? Amara asked, rubbing her eyes. Somewhere safe, Jae-hyun said, pulling onto the highway. Are the bad people here? Jae-hyun met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Yes, but they're not going to find you, I promise. Amara nodded, already half asleep again, her head resting against Sienna's shoulder. Sienna looked at him, her face pale in the dashboard light. What have you done? I'm keeping you safe. By dragging us into a war with the Korean Mafia? I didn't drag you into anything. You were already in it. You've been in it since the day they took you from me. And now Amara's in it too. I know. His hands tightened on the wheel. And I'm going to fix it. How? I don't know yet. Sienna laughed, sharp and bitter. That's great, Jay. That's really fucking great. He didn't have an answer, because she was right. He'd brought this into their lives, and now a 9-year-old girl with a bad heart was on the run the night before her surgery because of him. He drove until they reached a small motel on the outskirts of the city, paid cash for a room, and carried Amara inside while she slept. Sienna sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, and Jae-hyun stood by the window, watching the parking lot, waiting for headlights that didn't come. At 4 a.m., Sienna finally spoke. If she dies because we couldn't get to the hospital on time, I will never forgive you. Jae-hyun turned to look at her. She's not going to die. You don't know that. We'll be there. I'll make sure of it. And after? What happens after the surgery? Do we just keep running? No. He walked over, sat down beside her. After the surgery, I'm going to end this. I'm going to sit down with my uncle, and I'm going to make him understand that you and Amara are off limits, permanently. And if he doesn't agree, then I'll make him. Sienna looked at him, her eyes searching his face. You'd really go to war with your own family for us? Yes. Why? Because she's my daughter. His voice broke. And because I've already lost you once. I'm not doing it again. Sienna's face crumpled, and for the first time since he'd come back into her life, she cried. Not the quiet, controlled tears she'd let slip before, but real, gut-wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Jae-hyun pulled her against him, and she didn't fight it. She just held on to him like he was the only solid thing left in the world. I'm so tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. I don't know if I can do this. You don't have to. Not alone. Not anymore. She pulled back, wiped her face. The surgery's in 2 hours. Then we should go. They woke Amara, got back in the car, and drove through the empty pre-dawn streets to the hospital. The whole way, Jae-hyun kept checking the rear-view mirror, waiting for the black sedan he knew was coming. But it never appeared. They made it to the hospital at 5:30 a.m. A nurse took Amara back to prep her for surgery, and Jae-hyun and Sienna were left standing in a waiting room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Sienna sat down in a plastic chair, her face in her hands. Jae-hyun stood by the window, staring out at the rising sun, and thought about all the ways this could go wrong. His phone buzzed, a text from Min-jun. They know you're at the hospital. ETA, 15 minutes. I'm on my way. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. He walked over to Sienna, crouched down in front of her. I need you to listen to me very carefully. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. My uncle's men are going to be here in 15 minutes. I'm going to meet them outside. I'm going to handle this. But if something goes wrong, if things get bad, you stay in this hospital. You don't leave Amara. You understand? Jay, promise me. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. Before she could respond, a nurse appeared in the doorway. We're ready for Amara. You can say goodbye now. Sienna stood, her whole body shaking, and walked toward the prep room. Jae-hyun followed. Amara was lying on a gurney, an IV already in her arm, her face pale but calm. She smiled when she saw them. Hey, Dad. Jae-hyun felt his heart shatter. Hey, sweetheart. They said the surgery is going to take 4 hours. That's a long time. It'll go fast. Will you be here when I wake up? He knelt beside the gurney, took her small hand in his. I'll be here. I promise. Okay. She squeezed his hand. I'm not scared anymore. Why not? Because you're here. And just like that, Jae-hyun Kang, a man who had built an empire on fear and blood, felt something inside him break wide open. "I love you," he said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Amara blinked, surprised. Then she smiled, that bright, fearless smile that reminded him of everything good he'd ever lost. "I love you too, Dad." The nurse started wheeling her away, and Sienna walked beside the gurney holding Amara's other hand. At the doorway, she turned back and looked at Jae-hyun. "Don't you dare die before she wakes up," she said. And then they were gone. Jae-hyun walked out of the hospital into the parking lot, the morning sun cutting through the Houston haze, and saw the black sedan pulling in. 3 men got out, and Jae-hyun Kang prepared to go to war. The 3 men who stepped out of the black sedan were not strangers. Jae-hyun recognized them immediately. The one in front, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his left eyebrow to his jaw, was Park Sung-min, his uncle's head enforcer. The man had been in the family for 20 years, had trained Jae-hyun himself in hand-to-hand combat when he was 16. The other 2 were younger, mid-30s, muscle-hired from Busan. They wore dark suits that didn't quite hide the bulges at their waistbands. Sung-min smiled when he saw Jae-hyun, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Little Prince," he said in Korean, "your uncle wants a word." Jae-hyun didn't move from where he stood at the edge of the parking lot, his body positioned between the hospital entrance and the 3 men. "Tell him I'm busy." "He thought you might say that." Sung-min pulled a pack of cigarettes from his jacket, lit one, took a long drag. "That's why he sent us." "To do what? Drag me back to Seoul?" "If necessary." "It's not necessary." Sung-min's smile widened. "You've changed, Jae-hyun. 10 years ago you would have already pulled your gun. Now you stand there like a civilian, like someone who forgot where he came from." "I know exactly where I came from. That's why I'm not going back." "Because of the girl?" Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. "Don't. We've seen the photos. Cute kid. Looks just like you." Sung-min flicked ash onto the pavement. "Your uncle was surprised. Disappointed, but surprised. He didn't know you had it in you to create something that wasn't covered in blood. If you came here to talk, then talk. If you came here to threaten me, you can leave. I came here to remind you of something." Sung-min stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You don't get to walk away, Jae-hyun. You're a Kang. That means something. That means everything. And your uncle is willing to forgive this little detour. But you have to come home. You have to sit down with the family and explain yourself." "I don't owe him an explanation." "You owe him your life. He's the one who kept you alive after your father died. He's the one who made sure you inherited your share of the empire instead of getting thrown to the wolves. And this is how you repay him? By chasing some woman across the ocean and abandoning your responsibilities?" "My responsibility is upstairs on an operating table right now. My daughter is fighting for her life. That's my responsibility." Sung-min shook his head, almost sadly. "You really think you can do this? You think you can play house with the American girl and pretend the last 20 years didn't happen? You're a killer, Jae-hyun. That's what you are. That's all you've ever been. And sooner or later, that little girl is going to see it. And when she does, she's going to run. Just like her mother tried to." Jae-hyun moved before he could stop himself. He closed the distance in 2 strides, grabbed Sung-min by the collar, slammed him against the hood of the sedan. The 2 younger men reached for their guns, but Sung-min raised a hand, stopped them. "Let him go," Sung-min said calmly. Jae-hyun's fist hovered in the air, shaking. "Don't talk about them, ever." "Or what? You'll kill me? You'll start a war with your own family over a woman who spent 10 years hating you?" "If I have to." Sung-min studied him, and something in his expression shifted. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Then you're a fool." Sung-min pushed him back, straightened his jacket. "But I'll give you one chance. Come back to Seoul, sit down with your uncle, work this out like men, and maybe he'll let you keep the girl alive." The words landed like a punch to the gut. "What did you just say? Did—" Sung-min's face was cold now, all pretense of friendship gone. "You heard me. Your uncle is a reasonable man, but he's also a man who doesn't tolerate disrespect. And if you refuse to come home, if you continue to prioritize your bastard child over the family, then he'll have no choice but to make an example, to remind you what happens when you forget your place." Jae-hyun felt the rage build in his chest, hot and suffocating. "If you touch her—" "We won't have to. She's already dying, isn't she? Heart condition, needs surgery. How tragic it would be if something went wrong." If the doctors made a mistake, if the girl didn't wake up, the world stopped. Jae-hyun stared at Sung-min, at the casual cruelty in his face, and realized with cold, brutal clarity that his uncle had already made the decision. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a threat. And if Jae-hyun didn't comply, Amara would pay the price. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice sounded hollow even to himself. "Am I?" Sung-min tossed his cigarette to the ground, crushed it under his heel. "Your uncle has connections everywhere, Jae-hyun. You think a hospital in Houston is beyond his reach? You think he can't make a phone call and have someone walk into that operating room with a syringe full of air?" Jae-hyun's hand moved to the gun tucked into the back of his waistband, but Sung-min saw it coming and laughed. "Go ahead. Shoot me. Right here in the parking lot. But even if you kill me, even if you kill all three of us, your uncle will send more. And the next ones won't waste time talking. They'll just do the job." Jae-hyun's hand froze. Sung-min leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "You have until the surgery is over to make your decision. Come back to Seoul or watch your daughter die. Those are your options." He stepped back, gestured to the other two men, and they got back in the car. The engine roared to life. Sung-min rolled down the window, looked at Jae-hyun one last time. "Your uncle always said you were too soft. I guess he was right." The sedan pulled away, leaving Jae-hyun standing alone in the parking lot, his fists clenched so tight his nails drew blood. He stood there for a long time, staring at nothing, his mind racing. He could call Min-jun, mobilize his own crew, start a war right here in Houston. But that would take time, days, maybe weeks. And Amara didn't have days, she had hours. He could go to the police, but what would he say? That the Korean Mafia was threatening his daughter? They'd laugh him out of the building, or worse, they'd investigate. And by the time they figured out the truth, it would be too late. He could run, take Sienna and Amara and disappear, change their names, move to some small town in the middle of nowhere, hope his uncle never found them. But he knew better. His uncle didn't forgive. His uncle didn't forget. And if Jae-hyun ran, he'd be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. They all would. So he did the only thing he could think of. He went back inside the hospital, found a quiet corner near the vending machines, and called his uncle. The phone rang 3 times before Kang Dae-jung answered. "Nephew," his uncle said, his voice smooth, measured. "I was hoping you'd call. Call off your men. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll burn everything you've built to the ground." His uncle laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "You think you have that kind of power? You, who ran away to play father to some half-breed bastard?" Jae-hyun's hand tightened on the phone. "She's your blood, too. She's a mistake, a consequence of your weakness. And if you had any sense, you'd realize that. I'm not coming back to Seoul. Then your daughter dies. It's that simple. You'd kill a child to prove a point? I've killed children for less." His uncle's voice was cold, factual. "You know this, Jae-hyun. You've stood beside me while I gave the orders. Don't pretend you've suddenly grown a conscience. This is different. Because she's yours? That makes her special?" "Yes." His uncle sighed, like he was dealing with a petulant child. "You disappoint me. Your father would be ashamed. My father was a coward who let you control him his entire life." There was a long, dangerous silence. Then, "Be very careful what you say next." "Or what? You'll kill me too?" "Go ahead. But it won't change the fact that I'm not coming back. I'm done with you. I'm done with the family. I'm done with all of it. You're done when I say you're done." "No, I'm done now." Jae-hyun hung up, turned off the phone, and threw it in the trash. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. He leaned against the wall, closed his eyes, and tried to breathe. A voice behind him said, "That was stupid." He spun around. Min-jun was standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee, his face grim. "How long have you been here?" Jae-hyun asked. "Long enough to see you make the worst decision of your life." Min-jun handed him one of the coffees. "You just declared war on your own uncle. You know what that means, right? It means I chose my daughter. It means you chose death. For all of you." Jae-hyun took a sip of the coffee, felt the burn slide down his throat. "Then I'll die protecting her." Min-jun shook his head. "You're not thinking clearly. You're emotional. I'm a father." Jae-hyun's voice was steady now, resolute. "And I'm not going to let him hurt her." "He's already won, Jae. Don't you see that? The moment you refused him, the moment you hung up that phone, you gave him exactly what he wanted, an excuse to come after you, an excuse to make an example. So what do you want me to do? Go back to Seoul and let him control me for the rest of my life? I want you to be smart. I want you to think about what's best for the girl. What's best for her is having a father who doesn't bow to tyrants. Minjun stared at him, and for a moment Jae-hyun thought he was going to argue, but then he just nodded, set his coffee down on the floor, and pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Jae-hyun asked. Calling in favors. If we're going to survive this, we're going to need backup. A lot of it. You're staying? Minjun looked at him, his expression hard. You're my brother, Jae. I've followed you into hell more times than I can count. What's one more trip? Jae-hyun felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We're probably all going to die. Probably. They stood there in the hallway, two killers turned protectors, and waited for news from the operating room. 4 hours later, a surgeon in pale blue scrubs walked into the waiting room. Sienna stood up so fast she nearly fell. She's stable, the surgeon said, and the relief on Sienna's face was so raw it hurt to look at. The surgery went well. No complications. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about an hour. Sienna sat back down, put her face in her hands, and started to cry. Jae-hyun stood frozen, staring at the surgeon, unable to process the fact that his daughter had survived, that she was okay, that she was going to live. The surgeon smiled. She's a fighter. You should be proud. Jae-hyun managed a nod and the surgeon left. Minjun clapped him on the shoulder. See? One less thing to worry about. But Jae-hyun couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that this was too easy, that his uncle wouldn't just let this go. An hour later, a nurse led them to the recovery room. Amara was lying in a hospital bed, her eyes closed, her chest rising and falling in steady, shallow breaths. There were wires and tubes running from her body to machines that beeped softly in the background. She looked so small, so fragile. Sienna walked over to the bed, sat down in the chair beside it, and took Amara's hand. Hey, baby, it's Mom. You did so good. You're so strong. Amara's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy from the anesthesia. Mom? I'm here. Did they fix my heart? Yes, sweetheart, they fixed it. Amara smiled, a weak, drowsy smile. Then her eyes found Jae-hyun standing in the doorway. Dad? He walked over, crouched down beside the bed. I'm here too. You didn't leave. I told you I wouldn't. She nodded, her eyes already closing again. Good. And just like that, she was asleep. Sienna looked at Jae-hyun, and for the first time since he'd come back into her life, there was something other than anger in her eyes, something softer, something that looked almost like gratitude. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For being here. For keeping your promise. Jae-hyun wanted to tell her it wasn't enough, that keeping a promise didn't make up for 10 years of absence. But before he could say anything, his phone, the burner he'd picked up after throwing his old one away, buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. She's beautiful when she sleeps. It would be a shame if she never woke up. Jae-hyun's blood turned to ice. He looked up, scanned the recovery room, the hallway beyond. Nothing. No one who didn't belong. But the message was clear. His uncle's men were here. In the hospital. Close enough to see Amara. Close enough to kill her. He stood, walked out into the hallway, dialed Minjun. Where are you? Cafeteria. Why? They're inside the building. What? How? I don't know, but I just got a text. They're watching her. I'm on my way. Jae-hyun hung up, walked back into the recovery room. Sienna looked up at him, and whatever she saw in his face made her go pale. What's wrong? We need to move her. What? She just got out of surgery. I know, but we're not safe here. Jay, she can't be moved. The doctors said, I don't care what the doctors said. If we stay here, she's going to die. Sienna stared at him, her face a mask of fear and confusion. You're serious? Yes. She looked at Amara, at her daughter sleeping peacefully in the hospital bed, and Jae-hyun could see the decision warring inside her. Stay and risk the threat. Leave and risk Amara's fragile recovery. Finally, she nodded. Okay, what do we do? We get her out of here, now. Jae-hyun found a nurse that explained that they needed to transfer Amara to a different facility due to a family emergency. The nurse looked skeptical but didn't argue. Within 30 minutes, they had Amara loaded into an ambulance, still hooked up to monitors, still unconscious from the anesthesia. Sienna rode in the back with her. Jae-hyun and Min-jun followed in the car behind. "Where are we going?" Min-jun asked. "I don't know. Somewhere they can't find us." "There is no somewhere, Jae. Your uncle has people everywhere. If he wants you dead, you're dead. It's just a matter of time." "Then we buy time." "How?" Jae-hyun didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know. He was running on instinct now, on desperation, on the primal need to protect his child at any cost. They drove for 40 minutes, heading west out of the city, until they reached a small urgent care clinic on the outskirts of a town called Katy. It wasn't a hospital. It didn't have the equipment or the staff to handle post-surgical recovery. But it was quiet. It was off the grid. And it would have to be enough. They carried Amara inside, and a doctor, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and calloused hands, took one look at the situation and didn't ask questions. She set Amara up in a back room, checked her vitals, adjusted her IV. "She needs to be in a real hospital," the doctor said. "I know," Jae-hyun said, "but we can't go back." The doctor looked at him, then at Sienna, then back at him. "This is about more than money, isn't it?" "Yes," she sighed. "I can keep her stable for maybe 48 hours. After that, if there are complications, I won't be able to help her. 48 hours is all we need." The doctor nodded and left the room. Sienna sat down beside Amara's bed, her face pale, her hands shaking. "This is insane. We should go back to the hospital. We should call the police." "The police can't protect us from this." "Then what can?" Jae-hyun looked at her, and the weight of everything he'd done, everything he'd become, settled over him like a shroud. "I can." "By doing what? Killing everyone your uncle sends? You think that's going to work?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" Her voice rose, cracking. "My daughter is lying in a bed in a clinic that barely has electricity, and you don't know." "I'm trying, Sienna. We'll try harder, because I can't lose her. I can't." She broke down, her whole body shaking with sobs. Jae-hyun knelt beside her, pulled her into his arms, and held her while she fell apart. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Outside, Min-jun stood by the car, smoking a cigarette, his eyes scanning the empty road. His phone buzzed. A text from one of his contacts in Seoul. "Your uncle just put a bounty on Jae-hyun. $2 million US, dead or alive." Min-jun stared at the message, then looked back at the clinic, at the man inside who had just thrown away his entire life for a daughter he barely knew. And for the first time in 20 years, Min-jun wondered if loyalty was worth dying for. Inside the clinic, Amara stirred. Her eyes opened, glassy and confused. "Mom?" Sienna wiped her face, forced a smile. "I'm here, baby." "Where are we?" "Somewhere safe." Amara looked around the small room, at the cracked ceiling and the flickering fluorescent light, and frowned. "This doesn't look like the hospital." "It's not. But it's okay. You're okay." Amara's eyes found Jae-hyun standing in the corner. "Dad, why do you look scared?" Jae-hyun walked over, sat down on the edge of the bed. "I'm not scared." "Yes, you are, I can tell." He tried to smile, but it came out wrong. "Maybe a little. Is it because of the bad people?" "Yes." Amara thought about this, her small face serious. Then she reached out, took his hand. "It's okay to be scared. My mom says it's okay as long as you don't give up." Jae-hyun felt his throat tighten. "Your mom is very smart." "I know." Amara yawned, her eyes already closing again. "Don't give up, okay, Dad?" "I won't." "Promise?" "I promise." She smiled, squeezed his hand once, and drifted back to sleep. Jae-hyun sat there, holding his daughter's hand, and felt the full weight of what he'd done crash down on him. He'd walked away from his empire. He'd declared war on his family. He'd put a target on his own back. And now, a 9-year-old girl with a freshly repaired heart was paying the price. Min-jun walked into the room, his face grim. "We have a problem." "What now?" "Your uncle just put a bounty on your head, $2 million. Every crew from LA to New York is going to be looking for you." Jae-hyun closed his eyes. "How long do we have?" "Maybe a day, maybe less." Sienna looked at them, her face white. "What does that mean?" Jae-hyun turned to her, and for the first time since this had all started, he told her the truth. It means I have to go back. What? I have to go back to Seoul. I have to face my uncle. It's the only way to stop this. And if he kills you, then at least you and Amara will be safe. That's not good enough. It's all I have. Sienna stood, walked over to him, and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed in the small room. You don't get to do this, she said, her voice shaking with rage. You don't get to waltz back into our lives, make her love you, and then throw yourself on a grenade. That's not being a father. That's being a coward. Jae-hyun's face stung, but he didn't move. What do you want me to do? I want you to fight. I want you to find another way. I want you to be the man Amara thinks you are, not the man your family made you. I don't know how to be that man. Then learn. She grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. Because if you leave, if you go back to Seoul and let them kill you, I swear to God I will never forgive you. And neither will she. Jae-hyun stared into her eyes, and something shifted inside him. A choice, a line in the sand. He could go back. He could face his uncle. He could die the way he'd always expected to, alone, in blood, paying for a lifetime of sins. Or he could stay. He could fight. He could become something other than the weapon his family had forged. He looked at Amara, sleeping peacefully in the bed, her small hand still holding his. And he made his decision. Okay, he said quietly. I'll stay. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. You mean it? Yes. Min-jun stepped forward. If you're staying, then we need a plan. A real one. Because running isn't going to work. Hiding isn't going to work. If you want to protect them, you're going to have to go on the offensive. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to take your uncle out, before he takes you out. Jae-hyun looked at him. You want me to kill my own family? I want you to survive. And if that means putting a bullet in your uncle's head, then yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The room fell silent. Sienna stared at them both, horror and understanding warring on her face. You're talking about murder. We're talking about survival, Min-jun said. She turned to Jae-hyun. Is this who you are? Is this what you do? Jae-hyun didn't answer, because the truth was he didn't know anymore. All he knew was that somewhere in Seoul, his uncle was planning his death. And if Jae-hyun didn't move first, Amara would never wake up to see her 10th birthday. So he looked at Min-jun, at the only friend he had left in the world, and he said the words that would change everything. Set it up. Min-jun nodded, and just like that, Jae-hyun Kang stopped running and started hunting. The plan was insane. That was the first thing Sienna said when Min-jun laid it out on the table in the clinic's break room at 2 in the morning. She stared at the rough map he'd drawn on the back of a takeout menu, at the names and times scrawled in his tight, efficient handwriting, and she shook her head. This is suicide. Min-jun didn't disagree. Probably. Then why are we doing it? Because it's the only option we have left. Jae-hyun stood by this window, looking out at the empty parking lot, his reflection ghostly in the glass. He'd been quiet for the last hour, listening to Min-jun outline the details, absorbing every word without comment. Now he turned, his face hard and set. How many men does my uncle have in Houston right now? 5 that I know of, Sungman and the 2 from the parking lot. 2 more arrived this afternoon. They're staying at a hotel near the Galleria. Weapons? Standard crew loadout. Handguns, maybe a shotgun or 2. They're not expecting a fight. They think you're running. Good. Let them think that. Sienna stood up, her chair scraping against the linoleum. You're talking about killing 5 people. Jae-hyun looked at her. Yes. In cold blood. If that's what it takes. And then what? You think your uncle is just going to let this go? You think he's going to hear that you murdered his men and say, oh well, I guess I'll leave them alone now? No. I think he's going to come for me himself. And when he does, I'll be ready. Sienna's face went pale. You're using yourself as bait. Yes. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's the only way to end this. Jae-hyun walked over to her, his voice low and steady. As long as my uncle is alive, you and Amara will never be safe. He'll keep sending men, he'll keep threatening, he'll keep tightening the noose until one day someone gets through, and I can't live with that. So you're going to die instead? If I have to. And what about Amara? What am I supposed to tell her when she wakes up and asks where her dad is? Jae-hyun flinched. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I did everything I could. That's not enough. I know. Sienna turned away, her hands clenched into fists. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant beep of Amara's monitor in the next room. Then she spoke, her voice raw. If you do this, if you go through with this plan and you die, I will hate you forever. Do you understand that? I will hate you for making her love you and then leaving. I will hate you for being selfish. I will hate you for not finding another way. I know. Then don't do it. I have to. She spun around, tears streaming down her face. Why? Why do you have to be the hero? Why can't you just run? Why can't we disappear? Because they'll find us. They always find us. And when they do, it won't just be me they kill. It'll be you too, and her, and I won't let that happen. Sienna stared at him, her chest heaving, and Jae-hyun saw the exact moment she understood. The moment she realized he wasn't just willing to die for them. He was ready to. When? She asked quietly. Tomorrow night. That's not enough time. It's all we have. Minjun cleared his throat. We should go over the details one more time. Make sure everyone knows their role. Jae-hyun nodded, turned back to the map on the table. The hotel where they're staying has limited exits. 2 main entrances, 1 service door in the back. We hit them at night when they're off guard. Fast and quiet. What about the other 3, Sungmin and his crew? They'll come to us once they hear what happened. That's when we take them. And your uncle? Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. He'll fly in as soon as he hears his men are dead, probably within 12 hours. We'll be waiting. Where? Here. At the clinic. It's isolated, easy to defend, and he'll assume we're cornered. We will be cornered. Exactly. Minjun stared at him. You really think this is going to work? No, but I think it's our best shot. Sienna walked out of the room without another word. Jae-hyun watched her go, then turned back to Minjun. You don't have to do this. You can walk away. Go back to Seoul. Tell my uncle you had no part in it. Minjun lit a cigarette, took a long drag. And miss all the fun? Not a chance. You'll die. Probably. But I've been dying for years. This way, at least it means something. Jae-hyun nodded, and for a moment the 2 men stood in silence, bound by blood and loyalty, and the knowledge that tomorrow night one or both of them would be dead. Get some sleep, Minjun said finally. You're going to need it. Jae-hyun left the break room and walked back to the room where Amara was sleeping. Sienna was sitting in the chair beside the bed, her hand wrapped around their daughter's, her eyes red and swollen. She didn't look up when he came in. I'm sorry, he said. Don't. Sienna, I said don't. Her voice was sharp, brittle. If you're going to do this, if you're going to throw your life away, then don't apologize. Don't make it worse. Jae-hyun stood there, useless, and watched the woman he'd loved for 10 years fall apart because of him. Again. I need you to promise me something, Sienna said quietly. Anything. If you survive this, if by some miracle you make it through tomorrow, I need you to walk away. From the family, from the business, from all of it. I need you to be done. I am done. No, you're not. Not yet. But you need to be. Because Amara deserves a father who doesn't have blood on his hands, and I deserve... She trailed off, her voice breaking. What do you deserve? She looked at him, and the pain in her eyes was unbearable. I deserve to stop being scared. Jae-hyun knelt beside her chair, took her free hand in his. If I survive this, I'll walk away. I'll leave it all behind, I swear. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. She pulled her hand away. You've made promises before, Jae. They didn't mean anything. This one does. She didn't respond, just turned back to Amara, her face unreadable. Jae-hyun stood, walked to the door, paused. I love you, both of you. I need you to know that. Sienna didn't look at him. I know. He left the room and walked outside into the humid Texas night. The air was thick, oppressive, and the sky was choked with clouds that hid the stars. He leaned against the building, closed his eyes, and tried to remember the last time he'd felt clean. The last time he'd felt like something other than a killer. He couldn't. The next day passed in a blur of preparation. Minjun made phone calls, arranged for weapons, mapped out the route they'd take to the hotel. Jae-hyun checked on Amara every hour, watched her sleep, memorized the curve of her face in case he never saw it again. Sienna barely spoke to him. She moved through the clinic like a ghost, her eyes hollow, her hands shaking every time she touched their daughter. By evening, everything was ready. Minjun handed Jae-hyun a Glock 19, fully loaded, and a spare magazine. You remember how to use this? Yes. Good. Because once we start, there's no stopping, no second chances. I know. They got in the car just after 9 p.m. The drive to the hotel took 20 minutes. The building was a mid-range chain, the kind of place that catered to business travelers and families on vacation. Unremarkable. Anonymous. Perfect for men who didn't want to be noticed. Minjun parked 2 blocks away and they walked the rest of the distance, keeping to the shadows. The night was hot and still, the kind of heat that made your clothes stick to your skin and turned breathing into work. Jae-hyun's heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. They entered through the service door in the back, bypassing the front desk entirely. Minjun had bribed a housekeeper earlier in the day for a keycard, and it worked. They took the stairs to the 4th floor, moved quietly down the hallway, stopped outside room 412. This is it, Minjun whispered, 2 of them inside. You ready? Jae-hyun nodded. Minjun slid the keycard through the lock, and the light turned green. He pushed the door open, gun raised, and they moved inside. The room was dark. The curtains were drawn. The only light came from the television, flickering images across the walls. One man was sitting on the bed, watching some Korean drama. The other was in the bathroom, the door half open, the sound of running water filling the space. The man on the bed looked up, saw them, started to reach for the gun on the nightstand. Jae-hyun shot him twice in the chest. The sound was deafening, even with the suppressor. The man fell backward onto the bed, his body twitching, blood spreading across the white sheets like ink. The bathroom door flew open, and the second man came out, half-dressed, his hand fumbling for a weapon he didn't have. Minjun put 2 rounds in his skull before he could make a sound. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Jae-hyun stood there, the gun still raised, his ears ringing, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. He looked down at the man on the bed, at the blood pooling beneath him, and felt nothing. No guilt. No remorse. Just a cold, mechanical certainty that this was necessary. We need to move, Minjun said. The other 3 will know something's wrong soon. They left the room, took the stairs back down, exited the way they came. By the time they reached the car, Jae-hyun's hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the realization that he'd just crossed a line he could never uncross. Minjun started the engine, pulled out onto the street. You okay? No. Good. That means you're still human. They drove back to the clinic in silence. When they walked in, Sienna was standing in the hallway, her face white. Did you? Yes. She closed her eyes, leaned against the wall. How many? 2. And the others? They'll come for us now, probably within the hour. She nodded like she'd expected this, like she'd been preparing herself for it all day. What do we do? We wait. They didn't have to wait long. 43 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness outside the clinic. 3 cars. 6 men. Jae-hyun watched from the window as they got out, guns drawn, moving with the kind of precision that came from years of training. Sung-min was in the lead. They're here, Jae-hyun said. Minjun checked his weapon, chambered around. You know the plan? Yes. Then let's finish this. Jae-hyun walked to the room where Amara was sleeping. Sienna was sitting beside the bed, her hand on their daughter's chest, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing. They're outside, he said. Sienna looked up, her face calm now, resolved. I'm not leaving her. I know. Stay in this room. Lock the door. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Promise me. She nodded. I promise. He walked over, kissed Amara's forehead, then turned to Sienna. For a moment, he thought about kissing her too, about telling her everything he'd been too afraid to say for the last 10 years. But there wasn't time. There was never enough time. If I don't make it, you'll make it. If I don't, take her and run. Minjun has a contact in California. He'll get you out of the country. I'm not running. You will if you have to. For her. Sienna stared at him. And then she did something he didn't expect. She stood, walked over to him, and kissed him. Hard and desperate and full of 10 years of grief and anger and love that had never really died. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. Don't you dare die. I'll try. He left the room, locked the door behind him, and walked back to the front of the clinic where Minjun was waiting. They positioned themselves on either side of the entrance, guns raised, breathing steady. The front door exploded inward. Sungmin came through first, his weapon sweeping the room, and Jae-hyun shot him in the shoulder. The man went down hard, cursing, and the men behind him opened fire. The clinic erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through the walls, shattered windows, ripped apart furniture. Jae-hyun ducked behind the reception desk, returned fire, hit one of the men in the leg. Minjun was on the other side of the room, methodically picking off targets, his face cold and focused. One of Sungmin's crew rushed forward, trying to flank them, and Jae-hyun caught him in the chest. The man stumbled, fell, didn't get up. Another came from the left, and Minjun dropped him with a headshot. The gunfire was deafening. The air stank of cordite and blood and fear. Jae-hyun's ears were ringing so loud he could barely hear himself think. But he kept moving, kept shooting, kept fighting. Sungmin was on the ground, trying to crawl toward the door, blood pouring from his shoulder. Jae-hyun walked over to him, kicked his gun away, and pressed the barrel of his own weapon against the man's head. "Where's my uncle?" Sungmin laughed, blood bubbling from his lips. "On his way. He'll be here by morning." "Good. You think you've won? You think killing us changes anything?" Sungmin coughed, spat blood onto the floor. "You're dead, Jae-hyun. You just don't know it yet. Maybe, but you won't be around to see it." Jae-hyun pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the clinic, and then everything went silent. Minjun walked over, looked down at Sungmin's body, then at Jae-hyun. "It's done." "Not yet." They spent the next 2 hours cleaning up, moving bodies, wiping down surfaces, erasing evidence. By the time they finished, the sun was starting to rise, painting the horizon in shades of orange and red. Jae-hyun walked back to the room where Sienna and Amara were waiting. He knocked softly. "It's me." The door unlocked, and Sienna opened it, her face pale but steady. "Is it over?" "Almost." "What does that mean?" "My uncle is on his way. He'll be here by this afternoon." "And then?" "And then I finish this." Amara stirred in the bed, her eyes opening slowly. "Dad?" Jae-hyun walked over, sat down beside her. "Hey, sweetheart." "What was all that noise?" "Just some people being loud. Nothing to worry about." She yawned, already drifting back to sleep. "Okay, love you." "I love you too." He kissed her forehead, stood, walked back to where Sienna was waiting. "He's coming here," she said. "To the clinic." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'll break. And when he gets here, I'm going to prove him wrong." Sienna's hand tightened on the doorframe. "What if you can't? Then you take Amara and you run. You don't look back. You don't stop. You just run." "I can't do this alone." "Yes, you can. You've been doing it for 9 years. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Not without you." Jae-hyun pulled her into his arms, held her tight, and whispered into her hair, "You're the strongest person I know, and no matter what happens today, you're going to be okay. Both of you." She pulled back, looked up at him. "Promise me you'll fight. Promise me you won't just let him kill you." "I promise." She kissed him again, softer this time, and then she stepped back into the room and closed the door. Jae-hyun stood there for a moment, listening to the sound of his daughter's breathing on the other side of the wall, and he thought about all the choices that had led him here. All the violence, all the blood, all the years spent building an empire on fear and pain. And he realized that none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the little girl in that room, the woman who'd loved him despite everything, the family he'd never thought he deserved. And if he had to die to keep them safe, then so be it. Minjun walked up beside him. "The plane just landed. He'll be here in an hour." "Good. You ready?" Jae-hyun checked his weapon one last time, felt the weight of it in his hand, and nodded. "Let's end this." They waited outside the clinic, the morning sun beating down on them, the air already thick with heat. Jae-hyun's heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. He'd fought in alleys and warehouses and underground fight clubs. He'd killed men with knives and guns in his bare hands. But this was different. This was the man who'd raised him, the man who'd taught him everything he knew, the man who'd ordered Sienna's disappearance and threatened his daughter's life. This was family, and Jae-hyun was about to destroy him. At exactly 11:30 a.m., a black town car pulled into the parking lot. The door opened and Kang Dae-jung stepped out. He was in his 60s, tall and lean, with silver hair and a face carved from stone. He wore a dark suit, impeccably tailored, and moved with the calm confidence of a man who'd never lost a fight in his life. He looked at Jae-hyun and he smiled. "Nephew," he said in Korean, "you've been busy." Jae-hyun didn't move. "This ends today." "I agree." His uncle's smile widened, one way or another. Two more men got out of the car, flanking his uncle, their hands inside their jackets. Min-jun raised his gun. "Tell them to back off." Dae-jung raised a hand and the men stopped. "No need for violence, not yet." "Then why are you here?" Jae-hyun asked. "To give you one last chance. Come back to Seoul, take your place in the family, and I'll forget all of this ever happened. And Sienna, Amara, they can come too. Or they can stay, I don't care, as long as you remember where your loyalty lies." "My loyalty lies with them." Dae-jung's smile faded. "Then you're a fool." "Maybe, but I'm done being your weapon." "You were born a weapon, Jae-hyun. It's all you've ever been. All you'll ever be." "No." Jae-hyun's voice was steady, certain. "I was born a son, and now I'm a father. That's who I am." Dae-jung stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed, almost sadly. "I didn't want it to end this way." "Neither did I." Dae-jung nodded to the men beside him, and all hell broke loose. The two men drew their weapons, and Min-jun fired first, dropping one of them instantly. The other dove behind the car, returned fire, and Jae-hyun felt a bullet whip past his head, so close he felt the heat of it. He dropped to one knee, aimed, fired 3 times. The man behind the car screamed, fell. Dae-jung was already moving, faster than a man his age should be able to, pulling a gun from inside his jacket. He fired twice, and Min-jun went down, clutching his side, blood pouring between his fingers. "Min!" Jae-hyun shouted. "I'm fine! Get him!" Jae-hyun ran forward, his gun raised, but Dae-jung was already inside the clinic. Chae-hyun followed, his heart pounding, his breath ragged. The hallway was empty, silent. "Uncle!" he shouted. "It's over! Come out!" A door opened behind him. Jae-hyun spun around, and there he was, standing in the doorway of Amara's room, his gun raised, pointed at Sienna. "Drop the weapon," Dae-jung said calmly, "or I kill her." Jae-hyun froze. Sienna was standing in front of Amara's bed, her body between their daughter and the gun, her face white with terror. "Don't," Jae-hyun said. "Please." "Drop it." Jae-hyun let the gun fall from his hand, heard it clatter against the floor. Dae-jung smiled. "Good boy. Let them go. This is between us." "No, nephew. This is about family, about loyalty, about understanding that some things are more important than love." "You're wrong." "Am I?" Dae-jung stepped closer to Sienna, pressed the barrel of his gun against her temple. "Tell me, Jae-hyun, if I pull this trigger, if I take her from you again, will you still think I'm wrong? If you hurt her, I'll kill you. You'll try." Dae-jung's finger tightened on the trigger. "But you'll fail, just like you failed at everything else." And then Amara spoke. "Don't hurt my mom." Everyone froze. Amara was sitting up in bed, her eyes wide, her small hands clutching the blanket. Dae-jung looked at her, and for just a moment his expression softened. "So this is her," he said quietly. "Your daughter." "Please," Jae-hyun said, "let them go. I'll do whatever you want. I'll come back to Seoul. I'll take my place in the family. Just let them go." Dae-jung stared at Amara, and Jae-hyun saw something flicker across his uncle's face, something that might have been regret. "She has your mother's eyes," Dae-jung said, and then he turned the gun away from Sienna, pointed it at Amara. Sienna screamed. Jae-hyun dove forward, and the world exploded into fire. The gunshot never came. Jae-hyun slammed into his uncle with the full weight of his body, driving them both to the floor. The gun skittered across the linoleum, spinning under a metal cabinet. They hit hard, the impact driving the air from Jae-hyun's lungs, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. His fists came down like hammers, connecting with his uncle's face, his ribs, anywhere he could reach. Dae-jung twisted beneath him, faster than a man his age should be, and his elbow cracked against Jae-hyun's jaw. Stars exploded across his vision. He tasted copper, but he held on, his hands finding his uncle's throat, squeezing. "You pointed a gun at my daughter," Jae-hyun said through gritted teeth, his voice barely human. My daughter. Daejong's face was turning purple, his hands clawing at Jae-hyun's wrists, but Jae-hyun didn't let go. All the years of training, all the discipline his uncle had beaten into him, all of it vanished. There was only rage now, pure and primal and unstoppable. Sienna was screaming something, but Jae-hyun couldn't hear the words. His vision had tunneled down to his uncle's face, to the life draining from those cold eyes that had never once looked at him with anything resembling love. Daejong's knee came up hard into Jae-hyun's ribs, breaking the hold. They rolled, grappling, two predators locked in a fight that could only end one way. Daejong's hand found a shard of broken glass from the shattered window, and he drove it into Jae-hyun's shoulder. The pain was white-hot, immediate. Jae-hyun roared, wrenched the glass free, felt blood pour down his arm. He backhanded his uncle across the face with the same hand, the glass still clutched in his fist, and opened a gash across the old man's cheek. They scrambled apart, both bleeding, both gasping for air. Daejong's hand was inching toward where the gun had fallen. Jae-hyun saw it, lunged forward, but his uncle was faster. His fingers closed around the grip. He brought the weapon up, aimed at Jae-hyun's chest, and Min-jun appeared in the doorway, half his shirt soaked in blood, his own gun raised. Don't, Min-jun said, his voice steady despite the pain. Daejong laughed, a wet, rattling sound. You're dying, boy. You can barely stand. Maybe, but I can still shoot. Then do it. Kill me. Prove you're just as much a monster as I am. Min-jun's hand didn't waver. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for him. He pulled the trigger. The shot caught Daejong in the chest, dead center, and the old man's eyes went wide with shock. His gun clattered to the floor. He took one step backward, his hand coming up to the wound, and then his legs gave out. He collapsed against the wall, blood spreading across his expensive suit like spilled ink. Jae-hyun crawled over to him, his shoulders screaming, and looked into his uncle's face. The face of the man who had shaped him, controlled him, tried to destroy everything he loved. You were wrong, Jae-hyun said quietly. About everything. Daejong coughed, blood flecking his lips. No, you were. You think love makes you strong? It makes you weak. It makes you vulnerable. And now you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when the next blade will come. Maybe, but at least I'll have something worth protecting. His uncle smiled, a horrible, broken thing. We'll see. And then the light went out of his eyes. Jae-hyun sat there on the floor, staring at the body of the man who had been family, enemy, and everything in between, and felt nothing. No relief, no triumph, just exhaustion so deep it felt like drowning. Behind him, Sienna was holding Amara, both of them sobbing, and the sound finally pulled him back. He turned, saw his daughter's terrified face, and something inside him cracked wide open. It's over, he said, his voice hoarse. It's over, sweetheart. You're safe. Amara was shaking, her small body pressed against her mother, her eyes huge and red. I want to go home. We will. I promise. Min-jun slid down the doorframe, leaving a smear of blood on the white paint. Jae-hyun scrambled over to him, pressed his hands against the wound in his side. The blood was hot and slick and coming too fast. You need a hospital, Jae-hyun said. No shit. Min-jun's laugh turned into a cough. Did we win? Yes. Good, because I don't think I can do that again. You're not going to die. Probably not. But I'm definitely going to complain about it for the next decade. Jae-hyun smiled despite everything, pressed harder against the wound. Sienna, I need clean towels, anything. She moved fast, still holding Amara with one arm, grabbing towels from the bathroom and bringing them over. Together, they packed the wound, slowed the bleeding enough that Min-jun's breathing steadied. We need to call for help, Sienna said. No police. Min-jun's voice was strained. Not yet. We need to clean this up first. There are 6 bodies here, Sienna said, her voice rising. 6 dead men. We can't just clean that up. Yes, we can. Jae-hyun looked at her, and she saw something in his face that made her stop. I know people who handle this kind of thing, but we need time. How much time? A few hours. She stared at him, at the blood on his hands, at the bodies in the hallway, and he saw the moment she made the decision. Not because she agreed with it, but because she understood there was no other choice. Okay, she said quietly. But after this, we're done. No more of this. Ever. I know. I mean it, Jay. If you bring this life anywhere near her again, I'll take her and you'll never see us again. I know. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded and walked back to Amara. Jae-hyun made the calls. Within 2 hours, a crew arrived. Professionals who worked in silence, who asked no questions, who moved with the efficiency of people who'd done this 100 times before. They cleared the bodies, scrubbed the blood, patched the walls, and by the time they left, the clinic looked almost normal. Almost. Minjun was taken to a private doctor in the city, someone who specialized in treating injuries that couldn't be explained. Jae-hyun went with him, got his own shoulder stitched up, and by the time they made it back to the clinic, it was dark outside. Sienna was sitting in the waiting room with Amara curled up asleep in her lap. She looked up when Jae-hyun walked in, and the exhaustion on her face was so complete it hurt to see. "Is it really over?" she asked. "Yes." "How can you be sure?" "Because my uncle was the last connection to the old life. With him gone, there's no one left who cares. The family will move on, they'll find someone else to run things, and will disappear." "Just like that?" "Just like that." She looked down at Amara, stroked her hair. She had nightmares. She woke up twice asking if the bad man was coming back. Jae-hyun felt his chest tighten. "What did you tell her?" "I told her no. I told her you made sure of it." "I'm sorry she had to see that." "So am I." Sienna's eyes were wet. "But I'm not sorry you did it." He sat down beside her, careful not to wake Amara. For a long time, they just sat there in the fluorescent light of the clinic waiting room, two people who'd been through hell and somehow come out the other side. "What happens now?" Sienna asked finally. "Now? We leave Houston. We go somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knows us, and we start over." "Can you really do that? Just walk away from everything?" "I already have." She looked at him, searching his face for the lie. But there wasn't one. "Where would we go?" "I don't know. Somewhere with good schools, somewhere Amara can have a normal life." "And you? What will you do?" "I don't know that either, but I'll figure it out." Sienna was quiet for a moment. Then, "She asked me if you were staying." "What did you say?" "I said I didn't know, that it was up to you." Jae-hyun looked down at his daughter, at the peaceful expression on her sleeping face, and felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made settle over him. He'd killed men. He'd built an empire. He'd walked through fire and blood and come out the other side covered in both. But none of it meant anything compared to this. "I'm staying," he said. "If you'll let me." Sienna's breath hitched. "Are you sure? Because I can't do this halfway, Jay. I can't let her get attached and then watch you leave." "I'm not leaving. Not ever." "You say that now, I mean it." He turned to face her fully. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I've done terrible things, but I'm asking anyway. Let me be her father. Let me be part of this family. And I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you both deserve." Sienna's eyes filled with tears, and they spilled over, tracking down her cheeks. "I'm terrified." "So am I. What if it doesn't work? What if we can't make it work? Then we'll fail together. But at least we'll have tried." She laughed, a wet, broken sound. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's worth it." Sienna wiped her face, looked down at Amara, then back at him. "Okay. Okay. Okay. You can stay. But you have to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more half-truths. If we're doing this, we're doing it honestly. All of it." "I promise." She nodded, and for the first time in 10 years, Jae-hyun saw something in her face that looked like hope. They stayed at the clinic for another week while Amara recovered. The doctor, the woman who'd taken them in without questions, checked on her daily, monitored her heart, made sure the surgery was healing properly. By the end of the week, Amara was walking around, laughing, asking when she could go back to school. "Soon," Sienna told her. "But first we're going to take a little trip." "Where?" "Somewhere new, somewhere with mountains." "Can Dad come?" Sienna glanced at Jae-hyun, and he saw the slight smile at the corner of her mouth. "Yes, Dad's coming too." Amara grinned, threw her arms around Jae-hyun's neck. "I'm glad you're staying." "Me too, sweetheart." They left Houston on a Tuesday morning. Minjun drove them to the airport, his side still bandaged but healing. He'd made his own arrangements, a flight back to Seoul, a story prepared for the family about how Dae-jung had died in a business deal gone wrong. He'd take over operations, run things quietly, and make sure no one came looking for Jae-hyun. You sure about this? Jae-hyun asked him before they went through security. About lying to the family, or about letting you walk away? Both. Minjun smiled, clapped him on the shoulder. I think you're making the right choice. She deserves a father who's around, and you deserve a life that isn't soaked in blood. Thank you for everything. Just promise me one thing. What? Be happy. Because if I'm risking my neck to cover for you, you better make it worth it. Jae-hyun laughed, pulled him into a hug. I will. They boarded a plane to Colorado, a small town called Ridgeway, nestled in the mountains, population 3,000. Jae-hyun had found a house online, a 3-bedroom cabin with a view of the peaks and enough land that Amara could run and play without anyone looking over her shoulder. It wasn't Seoul, it wasn't Houston. It was quiet and cold, and so far removed from the life he'd known that it felt like another planet. And it was perfect. The first few months were hard. Amara adjusted quickly. Kids always did. But Sienna and Jae-hyun moved around each other like strangers, relearning how to exist in the same space. There were fights. There were nights when Sienna cried because she didn't know if she could trust him. There were mornings when Jae-hyun woke up in a cold sweat, his hands reaching for weapons that weren't there. But slowly, day by day, things got easier. Jae-hyun got a job at a local hardware store, and the simplicity of it, helping people fix broken things, talking about paint colors and lumber, felt like a kind of salvation. Sienna started working as a medical transcriptionist from home, and in the evenings they cooked dinner together while Amara did her homework at the kitchen table. They didn't talk about the past, not at first, but eventually, late one night after Amara had gone to bed, Sienna asked him about it. Do you miss it? The life you had before? Jae-hyun thought about it, really thought about it. Sometimes. I miss the control, the certainty, but I don't miss the violence, and I don't miss the person I was. Who were you? Empty. I was good at what I did, but I didn't feel anything. Every day was just survival, just blood and business and waiting for the next fight. And now? Now I feel everything, and it's terrifying, but it's real. Sienna reached across the table, took his hand. I'm glad you stayed. So am I. 6 months after they moved to Ridgeway, Jae-hyun took Amara on a hike up one of the nearby trails. It was early fall, and the aspens were turning gold, and the air was so clean it hurt to breathe. They walked in silence for a while, Amara stopping every few minutes to pick up rocks or point out birds. Dad? She said finally. Yeah? Are you happy here? He looked down at her, at this 9-year-old girl who'd saved his life just by existing. Yes, I am. Good. Because I like it here. And I like having you around. I like being around. She smiled, took his hand, and they kept walking. That night, after Amara was asleep, Jae-hyun found Sienna sitting on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring up at the stars. He sat down beside her, and for a long time neither of them spoke. I've been thinking, Sienna said finally. About what? About us. About whether this is real or if we're just pretending because of Amara. Jae-hyun's heart clenched. What do you think? I think I'm falling in love with you again, and it scares me. He turned to face her, saw the vulnerability in her eyes. Why does it scare you? Because the first time I loved you, it destroyed me. And I don't know if I can survive that again. You won't have to. I'm not the same man I was 10 years ago. I know. That's what scares me. Because this version of you, the one who reads bedtime stories and fixes broken cabinets and looks at our daughter like she hung the moon, this version I could love forever. And if I lose it, if you go back to being who you were, I don't know what I'll do. Jae-hyun took her hand, held it tight. I'm not going back. That life is over. This is who I am now. And if you'll have me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. Sienna's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Ask me again. 10 years ago, you never asked. You just assumed. Asked you what? You know what. Jae-hyun's breath caught. He slid off the bench, knelt in front of her on the cold wooden deck, and took both her hands in his. Sienna Carter, he said, his voice shaking. Will you marry me? She laughed through her tears. You don't even have a ring. I'll get one. I'll get you 1,000 rings. Just say yes. She looked down at him, at this man who'd walked through hell to find her, who'd given up everything for their daughter, who was kneeling in front of her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. He stood, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her the way he should have 10 years ago. Like she was home. Like she was everything. Like he'd been lost his entire life and only now, finally, found his way back. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony in the living room of their cabin. Amara was the flower girl wearing a yellow dress that matched her backpack, and she cried happy tears when Jae-hyun and Sienna exchanged vows. Minjun flew in for the wedding, his side fully healed, and he stood as Jae-hyun's best man. You did it, Minjun said during the reception, raising a glass of champagne. You actually got out. We did it, Jae-hyun corrected. I wouldn't be here without you. Don't get sentimental on me. I have a reputation to maintain. But he was smiling, and Jae-hyun knew that beneath the bravado, his friend was happy for him. That night, after the guests had left and Amara was asleep, Jae-hyun and Sienna sat on the back porch again, watching the stars. Sienna was wearing his ring now, a simple band of white gold that had cost him 3 months' salary from the hardware store. Do you think she'll remember? Sienna asked. What happened in Houston? Probably. But I hope she remembers this more. I hope she remembers the life we built here. She will. Kids are resilient. So are you. Sienna leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm tired, Jay. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then stop. It's over. We're safe. How can you be sure? Because I'll make sure. Every day for the rest of my life, I'll make sure. And he meant it. The years passed. Amara grew up strong and healthy, her heart fully healed, her laughter filling the cabin on the mountain. She played soccer, joined the school band, made friends who knew nothing about her father's past. She was smart and kind and fearless, and every time Jae-hyun looked at her, he saw proof that people could change, that redemption wasn't just a story, that love was stronger than blood. When Amara turned 18, she asked him about it, about where he'd come from, about the life he'd left behind. They were sitting on the same back porch, the same stars overhead, and Jae-hyun told her everything. Not the sanitized version, not the easy story, the truth. She listened without interrupting, and when he was done, she was quiet for a long time. Do you regret it? She asked finally. Any of it? I regret the violence. I regret the people I hurt, but I don't regret what it took to find you. Even though you killed people? Yes. She nodded slowly. I think I understand. Do you hate me? No, I could never hate you. She took his hand. You're my dad. You saved my life, and you gave up everything to be here. That's not something I take lightly. Jae-hyun felt his throat tighten. I love you, Amara, more than anything. I know, and I love you too. They sat there in this quiet, father and daughter, bound by blood and choice and the kind of love that survives fire. 20 years after leaving Houston, Jae-hyun and Sienna sat in the same cabin, older now, their hair touched with gray, their hands weathered by time. Amara had grown up, gone to college, become a doctor. She'd married a good man, had 2 children of her own, and brought them to visit every summer. The cabin was full of noise and laughter and life, and Jae-hyun marveled at how something so simple, a family, a home, a life built on honesty and love, could feel so profound. One evening, after the grandkids were asleep and Amara and her husband had gone for a walk, Sienna turned to Jae-hyun. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come to Houston? Every day. And I think I would have died. Maybe not physically, but in every way that mattered. I was already dead, Sienna. You and Amara brought me back to life. She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. We saved each other, I think. Yeah, we did. He pulled her close, and they sat there on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. 2 people who'd survived the impossible and found peace on the other side. Jae-hyun thought about his uncle sometimes, about the empire he'd left behind, about the man he used to be. But those thoughts came less and less as the years went by, replaced by memories of Amara's first steps, her high school graduation, the way she'd looked in her wedding dress, replaced by mornings with Sienna, coffee on the porch, quiet conversations about nothing and everything. He'd been a killer once, a weapon, a man who'd built his life on fear and blood. But that wasn't who he was anymore. Now he was a father, a husband, a grandfather, a man who fixed broken cabinets and taught his grandchildren how to fish and fell asleep every night beside the woman he loved. He was Jae-hyun Kang, and he was finally truly free. On his deathbed, years later, with Sienna holding his hand and Amara sitting beside him, Jae-hyun looked back on his life and felt something he'd never expected to feel. Gratitude for the pain that had led him here, for the choices that had broken him and remade him, for the daughter who'd saved him and the woman who'd forgiven him. "I love you," he whispered to them both. "We love you too," Sienna said, her voice breaking. Amara leaned down, kissed his forehead. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." And Jae-hyun closed his eyes, a small smile on his lips, and let go. He'd fought his whole life, fought for power, for control, for survival. But in the end, the only fight that mattered was the one for love. And he'd won. The cabin on the mountain still stands today, filled with memories of a man who walked out of the darkness and into the light, who traded an empire for a family, who learned that the hardest thing in the world isn't pulling a trigger, it's learning how to put the gun down. And Jae-hyun Kang, killer, father, husband, man, finally put it down and never picked it up again.